The battle begins, tiny but mighty. I fight for the win, swinging and dodging. I never back down. One little punch can shake the whole town. They say I'm too small, say I won't last, but watch me rise up. I'm lightning fast, running through titans, taking them all. One by one, I make them fall. Ready, set, rumble, here we go. I may be little, but I steal the show. Fists of fury, heart of steel. The littlest fighter, yeah, the real deal. Crashing through cities, breaking the ground. Every new challenge, I'm taking them down. But then comes Dot, she's calling my name, telling me, Ash, this ain't just a game. What if these battles are hurting too much? What if destruction's the real uppercut? Still, there's one fight I need to see. The legendary champ is waiting for me. Ready, set, rumble, here we go. I may be little, but I'll steal the show. Fists of fury, heart of steel. The littlest fighter, yeah, I'm the real deal. Through the dust and the echoes of fights, I see the truth in the champion's light. Maybe the biggest win I'll ever find ain't throwing a punch, but changing my mind. Ready, set, rumble, one last time. Strength ain't just fists, it's heart and mind. Fists of fury, heart of steel. The littlest fighter, now I'm the real deal. Yeah, the littlest fighter. Standing tall, win or lose, I give it my all. From the islands where the sun meets the sea, Jason's the voice we all wanna be. Interviewing creators, making comics come alive. With every story, he helps us thrive. Jason from Hawaii, diving in deep, unveiling the stories that we wanna keep. From creators to heroes, he's got the scoop on the comics for fun and profit loops. So tune in.
Aloha! It's Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be talking to Eisner Award nominated comic book creator Joey Weiser. He is here to promote his latest book, The Littlest Fighter. This is an original graphic novel from Oni Press. This graphic novel is out in stores right now. Joey, welcome to the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. How are you doing today?
Aloha. Thanks for having me.
Oh,
I'm doing
so
great.
Cool. That's so cool. That's a great up. Thank you. Oh, that's so cool. All right, Joey, I'm just going to go over some of your past works. Please correct me if I miss, if I got one of your information wrong, but just,
Sure.
or just throw in something or, so, all right. So he has written a number of Oni books for Oni Press. They are the Eisner nominated Mermin series. Did I pronounce that correct? The title?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, like a merman. He's a fish boy, so Mermin the merman.
Okay. Now there are 5 now, so far as we know that there are 5 volumes.
Right.
It was Mermin Book 3 Deep Dive that was nominated for an Eisner Award under the category Best Publication for Early Readers. Also, too, you have written Ghost Hog that was nominated for Kids Comics Award for the most epic adventure, and you've also written Dragon Racer, nominated for Georgia Author of the Year for Young Adults. Is that correct?
That is all correct. I will mention that the Mermin Book 3, in addition to being nominated for the Eisner Award, did actually win a Georgia Book Award. It was awarded a book all young Georgians should read by the Georgia Center for the Book. So I think it got on their radar because of that Eisner nomination, and it was very exciting to get go to a little award ceremony and stuff for that. It was very fun.
That's so nice. Congratulations on that. I'm sorry I missed that
Thank
part of
you.
it. Dang.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. All right. And then you have also done some work, both writer and artist, on a number of SpongeBob comics. And you are a colorist. Some of your works that you have done is history comics, hip hop, um, the Beat of America. Um, you've also did the coloring on the Lunch Lady series, and the Jedi Academy, A New Class. Now, Joey, is there something I miss, or is there one of your works that you want listeners to really check out?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty comprehensive list. I mean, yeah, I do all sorts of coloring for lots of different comics, which is really fun. It's really cool to get to see kind of a close-up look at other artists' work and think about why they're doing the things that they do. But in addition to The Littlest Fighter, I would definitely recommend people look out for Ghost Hog and Dragon Racer because those are two self-contained books. You can read one book and get the whole story, but they have some of the same characters in them. So
Oh,
you might enjoy seeing, the characters from Ghost Hog pop up in Dragon Racer as well.
oh, that is so. Oh my God, you're making your own little multiverse, or not multiverse,
Yeah.
little world.
Yeah, it's a shared world for
Yes.
sure. Yeah, those characters I even considered originally bringing those characters over into the Littlest Fighter, and I just didn't quite have any room for them in the story to do anything, and I didn't want to just throw them there just to have them, but
Yeah,
I do kind of think of it as taking place on the same world. So they could potentially meet each other someday.
that's pretty cool. But let me just this is off the cuff before I continue on. I think what's really good is that with the Littlest Fighter, what was nice was that you basically focused on the two main characters.
Hmm.
That's good because if you brought in someone else, I'd be going, oh wait, who is this? Oh, I didn't know that. Then it's going down a different rabbit hole instead of just focusing on your main characters, Ash and Dot, and we will talk a little bit more about them in a few minutes. But that's so cool that you have like a shared universe there.
Hmm.
Okay, where can listeners follow you on social media?
I think at the moment, Blue Sky and
Mhm,
Instagram are the best places. I'm at Joey Weiser on Blue Sky and Joey Weiser Comics on Instagram.
mhm,
My Blue Sky is pretty general, just kind of talking about my life, talking about any movies or books I'm reading, things
mhm.
like that. And then Instagram is a lot more focused on my work and posting just about my comics, my illustrations, and events I'm going to, and things like that.
I'm going to ask, do you want to also, because I got some of your information from your website, do you want to promote your website too?
Oh, sure. So if you go to tragic-planet.com, that will redirect you to a portfolio page
Hmm.
where I've got examples from my illustrations. There's samples of all my books. There's even some full comics included that you can read, and there's information about all my publications and about school visits and things that I do. That's a real good place for people to check out if they want to see more information about me.
Okay, thank you very much. Um, Now, listeners, before we start into the interview, I want to give a big shout out to Hannah Bahedri of Superfan Promotions. Hannah, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes in setting up this interview and providing me um, a PDF copy of The Littlest Fighter. Joey, would you like to give a shout out to Hannah?
Totally love to shout out to Hannah and the whole Oni marketing team. They've been really doing a great job of like setting up all sorts of interviews and sending out sample pages and sample PDFs to everybody. It's been really cool. I've been busy. Like this month, I'm doing I think 6 or 7 podcasts and some written interviews and stuff. It's been
Mhm.
a big busy time getting ready for the book to come out.
Yes, all right. No, thank you very much. Now, listeners, I had to prepare for this interview. I got as I mentioned, that I got some of my information from Joey's website, but I also got some information from the Comic Speed. The article was titled "Previews: The Littlest Fighter Vows to Take Down a fighting legend. Now, the article was written by Hilary Leung. That was dated back in December 16th, 2024. If you get a chance, please check out that article. All right, Joey, let's just jump in. The Littlest Fighter. What is the story about?
Okay. The simplest pitch that I can give for the book is that, if you think about kaiju, like giant
Mhm,
monsters, like Godzilla and things like that, what if a kaiju was about the size of a human child and wanted to battle giant kaiju?
mhm,
And this is the story of Ash, who is this, monster-esque little character who is battling against these giant monsters all across the land with the intention of finding this mysterious figure known as the legendary champion. And he encounters Dot, a another non-human character about his size, who has kind of different feelings about fighting, and helps him see kind of like the ramifications of his actions and the way that what he's doing is like affecting others.
mhm.
Because there's a lot of destruction of people's homes and things that happen when these giant monsters battle.
Um, I, I'm gonna just go an off the cuff question because it's like you're right because it's like um because it just hit me while you're talking about this because it's like and we'll talk a little bit more about some of your artwork and how you mentioned about kaijus and so forth. It's like we all I love watching these Godzilla movies,
Hmm.
Pacific Rim. It's
Hmm.
always like the destruction of a huge, destruction of some building, but we never see the aftermath. We never see you know, um, it's like, oh my God, my house was destroyed. Godzilla stepped on it. What do I do now? You
Yeah, right.
know?
And that was the thing that my editor brought up when I was talking about these themes and the story is that she was concerned about it being like too grim,
Mhm.
to really like deal with this. And so there's parts of the book where you are being reassured like that these people are okay, like
Yes.
everyone's safe and no one's being like seriously harmed,
Oh,
but
yeah.
there is a lot of like destruction of their property and things that are very impactful for their lives. And Ash is kind of eventually forced to kind of like acknowledge this and deal with it himself.
Because it's kind of because I'm going to say Joey because the more we keep talking about it, it's like we have to deal with the consequences of our some of our actions because sometimes, unfortunately, when in real life when we do certain things, it unfortunately hurts somebody or someone gets hurt or it's like, oh shoot, I didn't mean to like set off I didn't, we were just cooking outside. I didn't mean for part of the garage to get burned.
Yeah.
It's like you know, um, but but that's right. But that's what pretty much the story deals with is that it's like part of your actions. You have to deal with the consequences, how you face up to those consequences. Okay. Sorry, Joe. I'm kind of going off tangent, but that's one of the things I loved about the story.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I think if kids walk away from this enjoying the battles and the action and the comedy and all that stuff, that's really great. But I hope that they'll also kind of be able to look back at their actions and think about how what they can do for others and think about
Yes.
selflessness and things like that.
All right. Now, what were some now you mentioned about kaiju. Um Ash is, this little kaiju basically, he's the size of a human basically, along with Dot. What were some of your influences in writing this story? Because we already talked about kaiju, mentioned about Godzilla.
Yeah, I mean, I've loved Godzilla movies since I was a little kid. I grew up in the 80s and I was like renting tapes all the time of
Hmm.
Godzilla movies. And as I got older, I got kind of a more general interest in like Japanese culture,
Hmm.
anime and Japanese film and things like that. But kaiju stuff was always very present. And learning not just about Godzilla, but then there's the Gamera movies and other kaiju
Yes.
movies, and then there's non-Japanese kaiju movies,
Hmm.
King Kongs and Pacific Rim, like you mentioned, and things
Hmm.
like that. Um, and so that on just a sort of surface level was the kind of basic idea was like, well, I've never like drawn a kaiju type story before. I've done some maybe little pieces of fan art here and there
Yes.
and things like that. But I haven't actually done like a story involving these kinds of creatures. And
Hmm.
so it just kind of unfurled from there where I was like, well, okay, what could I do that's interesting with kaiju? Well, what, you know, it sometimes you just kind of play with opposites a little bit where it's like, well, kaiju are typically giant. What if one was small? And what if he still
Yes.
interacted with the giant ones? And the story came together in bits and pieces like that. But I'm a big Godzilla fan, big kaiju fan. I tend to like the like Showa era stuff from the 60s and
Oh
70s.
God,
That's
yes.
kind of my like real core of what I love.
Hmm.
And I think that that kind of makes its way into the story one way or another.
So fans, as Joey mentioned, he's got a website. He does some fan art. If you get a chance, please check out his website. If you're a big Godzilla fan, I love your fan art of the one where there's you can see like it's a you see Mothra, you see Rodan, you see the I don't even know the names of the worms, but the worms that that
Oh.
yeah.
Mothra's little grubs, yeah.
Yeah, yes. But
Um,
it's so
where
cool.
they're all running together, that
Yes.
one. Yeah, that's I call that the Godzilla rally, and I originally posted those images one monster at a time on Twitter, and then I compiled them together all in one big line where you can see them running together. That was really fun. That was my first time drawing a lot of those monsters. It was really great.
It's really nice. It's real. I saw it. It's great. I love it. It's great. Off the cuff question, because as Godzilla fans, we love the movies, action figures. Do you have a Godzilla
Oh
action?
yeah. I have some, I had a Godzilla toy as a kid that I've lost track of. I'm not sure where it went, but
Mhm.
in kind of more recent years, there's been a lot of these kind of like Super 7 designer figures and things like that. And
Mhm.
I like the ones that are kind of small. They don't take up too much room. I recently got one of him doing the jump from Invasion of Astro Monster, the little like
Oh
Godzilla
yes.
dance, quote unquote. And they made a figure of him actually doing that dance and that little jump. That's a Osamatsu-kun reference, and I was just like, oh, I've got to have that because
Mhm.
because I love it so much.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to continue on. We've already talked about Dot. We mentioned Dot and we mentioned about Ash. How did you come up with these characters? And do you want to talk about the other characters that pop up in this story?
Sure. I mean, Ash is the first character I created and kind of created this concept of him being a small guy battling big guys. And then Dot was created initially just because I needed somebody for him to talk to. And I wanted
Mhm.
another kind of non-human character to exist for him to talk to. And then maybe they'd fight together, or maybe I wasn't quite sure what the
Mhm.
story was going to be yet. And then when I realized it was a little odd to have two non-human characters that are small and then the rest of them all be gigantic,
Uh-huh.
I ended up kind of filling out the world with lots of a mixture of like human
Yes.
characters and non-human characters all living
Mhm.
together. And so I think Dot's inclusion actually ended up making the world a lot richer and more interesting.
Yes. Mhm.
Um, and then yeah, you've got characters like Slim, who's this little kind of like bat-like guy, a little
Mhm.
flying guy who acts as a narrator. He likes to announce. He's kind of like a ringside announcer where he's talking up
Yeah.
like what's happening during the fight and
Mhm.
hyping up the fighters. And he's the one who gives Ash the nickname the Littlest Fighter.
Mhm.
But he's kind of more of a nuisance to those around him than than I
Yes.
think he
Yes.
thinks he likes to think he is. And then yeah, there you meet lots of other fighters. Eventually, they meet a kind of kindly giant fighter named Terry
Mhm.
that I don't want to talk too much about because that's
No.
kind of getting too much into the middle of the story where things start to change.
Mhm.
But he's maybe the one that's the most kind of reminiscent of Godzilla himself
Mhm.
in the
Yes.
design, because he's older than everybody else. I wanted something very classic looking for him. And
And
yeah, I designed the characters by just, playing with shapes and making sure they're all different from each other and very recognizable. Dot is the size of Ash, but she's a little bit taller,
Mm-hmm.
and Ash has a sort of more like smooth, lizardy texture,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like fluffy, kind of
Mm-hmm.
maybe feathery. It's unclear, kind of muppety, and and he's a kind of dark teal, and she's a bright pink, and all the other fighters that you encounter all have kind of different shapes and colors and things
Yes.
associated with them.
Um, how much fun did you have? Um, Actually, I'm gonna go for the large fighters. How much fun did you have creating the large fighters? Like, there was one where it's is it Ood? OOD? The
Ood
mul
is the one with all the eyes and the
Yeah.
crab claws. Yeah, he is so fun to draw. He's just like basically a big circle with arms and legs, and so he's a big chunk. And I didn't keep track of like how many eyes I was drawing every time or anything like that. But he was very fun to draw. And he's kind of a big wall of a character, so he takes up a lot of space. And so his companion Swillow is this kind of more skinny, a little bit gaunter and scarier looking
Mhm.
guy. That's kind of looks like a flower, kind of.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a lot of fun. You can see in the back of the book a lot of sketches that I did
Hmm.
for fighters that don't even appear in the book. Because I just tried to draw as many interesting characters as I could, and then I could kind of pick them out and decide what to do with them as the story needed.
Oh, because off the cuff, um because I love the oh I'm sorry, I'm blanking. Not Ood, the many-eyed creature, but the flowery creature. I love the flowery creature because it kind of sort of looks like one of those Power Ranger monsters, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's my kind of love for the that 70s era
Hmm.
kaiju thing. I also love old Super Sentai and Kamen Rider and the Power Rangers stuff. I love all that stuff. But I especially like the older shows where it's just like, you take one object and one animal and mash them together, and
Yes,
and now you've got a gorilla fax machine or something is
yes.
the villain, and and something like that is very fun, and I've been told that that Swillow reminds some folks of there's like flower creatures from Stranger Things. I haven't actually
Oh.
seen that show, but I'm vaguely familiar with those monsters.
Hmm.
I do think more of the influence was from those kind of old Kamen Rider style, uh, kaijin.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to go off the tracks on this one. Like, okay, like, I mean, do you have like the Kamen Rider? Do you have like a box DVD set or something, or any of the action figures or anything?
I have a set of I'm kind of currently making my way through watching Kamen Rider V3,
Oh yeah,
which came out on Blu-ray recently.
I didn't
Um,
know that. Okay.
I did, thanks to Discotek Media. And I've seen the original one streaming, the original
Yes.
series streaming, but I don't think there's any physical copy of that available with like English subtitles.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. I do have maybe a little. I have a couple little like mini figurines
Yes.
of the
Mhm.
original Kamen Rider, because I love that design of the scarf and everything.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm a fan of that stuff. I've seen occasionally like some of the newer shows, and they don't kind of click with me as much as the
Mhm.
70s and 80s stuff.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that I think is just really, really fun.
Because man, it was crazy stuff that they did. I mean, it's like because for me, I grew up on Kamen Rider V3. They would show it here, here in
In
Hawaii back
Hawaii,
in the
right?
yeah.
Hmm.
We never we they never got the rights to show the original Kamen Rider, but
Oh,
we
okay.
kind of heard about it. But Kamen Rider V3 was one that they showed. But I mean, the costume designs for most of them were so intricate. You're kind of going, how can they do a flip where the you're trying to figure out where's the stuntman's head in the costume,
Yeah.
or Or when
Those performers are incredible. Like they
ah
do some amazing work.
oh yes, okay, all right, sorry. So sorry, let's go back. I gotta get back. Okay, sorry about that. Um now one thing I wanted to ask was because I noticed that um in the Littlest Fighter that there are two different classes that there you have one that's a fighter, the fighters and the champions. Was that intentional or you know?
Yeah, that came from just needing something to call the creatures, right? I
Okay.
didn't the word monster has a very specific negative connotation, and we keep talking about kaiju. That's like a loaned word from Japanese that's like starting to be more common in English, but it
Yes.
just felt a little too like earthbound and a little too like specifically
Mm-hmm.
referencing Japanese culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want to use the word kaiju. And I had come up with the title, The Littlest Fighter, about this guy. And so I was like, oh, well, what if they're all called fighters?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, guess I just had to have the distinction that all these giant creatures are called fighters, and then
Yes.
as one fighter wins
Mm-hmm.
and kind of in a region, they're known as a champion. And so
Yes.
there's a champion of that region, and everybody wants to challenge that champion to then become a champion themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of goes back to the idea that um, Ash is looking for this legendary champion character,
Mm-hmm.
and this is to kind of just give him a big goal initially that seems like
Yeah.
he's got something to work towards,
Mm-hmm.
even though maybe his priorities change as the book goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the system just kind of fighters and champions just kind of evolved from those different story needs.
Okay. No, but I have to say, but I like that because it's like you said, it's like you don't want to call them monsters because it's already a negative thing. But if you call them fighters and then champions, then it almost and for me, it almost seems like that they have to strive for something.
Yeah.
So, oh, okay. Um, I love the colors in this book. How much fun did you have choosing the colors for each fighter? Like I said, so I'm going to go back with Ood, the multi-eyed fighter. I love it where he's like this kind of like an aqua the whole he's just an aqua blue creature. You
Yeah.
know? But it's so vibrant and so vivid and different. And it's so cool, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like we were saying earlier, like I do a lot of coloring for other people's work. So coloring is something that I've maybe got a little bit of a natural knack for, but I also have a lot of practice just from doing it a lot as a freelance job. And with this book, I really pushed my coloring more than I had before. I integrated a lot of like dot tones
Hmm.
and did more stuff with kind of effects with like gradients and making, the night scenes I think are especially kind of different than any way I've colored before.
Yes. Hmm.
And when it comes down to coloring the individual characters, it's just like what I keep saying about like wanting to make sure they're very distinct from one another. So didn't want any of them to be the same color, you
Yeah.
know.
Hmm.
Um, but you start running out of your basic primary colors after a while. But um, I think Ash has a very kind of classic dark green,
Hmm.
kind of dark teal color. But then he has this bright flame pattern around his eyes, which gives him something
Yes.
that's a little bit more interesting to look at.
Hmm.
And once I had his design nailed, I could kind of work with that with all the other characters to make them stand out from one another. And it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I like it.
Since you mentioned about there's some scenes that take place during the night. Um, Now, listeners, I'm gonna like when I got the review PDF, I read it off my computer, and I want to say it looks like I. Then correct me if I'm wrong, Joy. I love it because I came across it, and it looked like a double-page spread where Ash and Dot are sitting like in a little forest area, and they're enjoying looking up at the night sky.
Oh
I
yeah.
l-
Hmm.
Oh, that was great. That was breathtaking because it's just a couple things. One, just the stark contrast of the just the black, and you can see the green of the forest. Ash is green. Dot, you got to correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of a pink color.
Yeah.
But the night that but it's not just black night. You have like there's like little white dots of stars representing stars, but I think also, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think some of those little stars, some of the colors are kind of a little bit of light blue. You add a little bit light color tones in it, and
Yeah, there's some blues and pinks actually in there
yes.
as well. Yeah, I there are two big starry two-page spreads that kind of happen one after another, and the way that I naturally draw night skies is usually just with little simple dots that I draw
Mhm.
myself by hand, and then for these I needed them to be very impressive looking. I needed
Yeah.
it to be a moment where the characters are kind of bonding with each other and kind of like getting outside of themselves a little
Mhm.
bit. And so I needed them to be these pages where you really like land on them and like look at them for a while. And so I actually, even though I draw most of my comics on paper and then scan them into the computer, I didn't draw those skies by hand. I just
Mhm.
drew the characters and
Yeah.
then scanned it in and then used digital brushes to make like a starry sky. And it was cool. I'd never done something like that before. It took a few tries to get it right,
Mhm.
but I eventually got it to a point where I was like, yeah, this looks good, and I was very, very pleased with it.
It's very, it's breathtaking. And I'll tell you why. And because the vastness of night, encompass most of the two-page spread. And you see, I mean, and
Hmm.
in the corner part, in the corner, you see again the forest, you see Ash and Dot looking up. What I love about it, again, it's so breathtaking, and yet at the same time, it's it's also nice and um nice quiet moment then for the two characters. Like you say, they're
Yeah,
bonding.
when you make comics, to some extent, you can't control how fast people are going to read through the comics, but to some extent, you do have control over that. And,
Mhm.
I don't actually do a lot of double page spreads. And so I wanted that one in particular to like have a lot of impact and try to slow down people if possible.
And it worked. It did because I was like, wow. And because it took me a while because it's just it took me a while to look at it. Like I said, it's it's amazing. It
Oh, thank
really is.
you.
So, Joanne, so I'm gonna continue on. The other thing I love about the Littlest Fighter is the story. Um, and the story of Ash and Dot that they have. We talked about, actions and consequences, but Ash and Dot have, and let's not try to go into their backgrounds, but they have similar backgrounds. But, and I love it that their choices on how they live their lives are so different. That's the thing I love about that.
Thank you.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you want to comment on that or
I mean, it gives, Ash is a hard character to get through to. He's very focused and he's kind of made up his mind about
yes,
the way things are and the way that he wants to be. And, he's a very selfish character in a lot of ways.
that's right.
Um,
Hmm.
and I think him and Dot kind of having uh similar backgrounds gives them something that they can bond over, and it can gives something that kind of breaks through to him and makes him like pay attention a little bit more.
Yes.
And he's seeing somebody who has lived through something tough that he's also lived through, and seeing that there's like different ways to approach your
Hmm.
life moving forward. And it's also a way for Dot to kind of feel closer to Ash as well, and to really like make their friendship have something solid that they can hang it on.
The other thing I'm going to say too, what I love about, excuse me, what I love about Ash is, like you said, that he's a little bit selfish and so forth when we meet him, but yet he's still likable, and I
Uh-huh.
can relate to him.
Yeah.
He's not because he doesn't come off as a real jerk or anything.
Mm-mm.
But no, but he's still lovable. He's relatable, and he talks about, yeah, this is why I do things, and it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I still want people to like him, and I think that when I was initially writing, first doing sketches of him, he was a kind of grumpier character who had his arms crossed and was frowning all the time, and
Hmm.
was kind of a like, I want to fight people. I don't care what you think, kind of like a little bit more of an attitude. And then as I started writing the story, he just started coming across as a much more naive character who's a lot more
Hmm.
innocent in his own way. And so I like this sort of character that's like strong but innocent and has a kind of like pure heart in some ways, but maybe
Yes.
has something to learn about the world still.
Hmm.
And that just started naturally coming out about his character. And it's the kind of thing that when you're writing, it's a funny thing, but sometimes things happen that you just can't even control and that you don't really understand where they're coming from until after you look back on them and you say, "Oh yeah, I guess it works well that way."
All right. Um, I'm gonna start slowly wrapping things up. I'm gonna ask, would you like to give shout outs to the rest of the creative team that helped put this book together?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Grace Scheipter is my editor, and she's a huge has a has been a huge help on this. She came in and started working with me midway through Dragon Racer, where that was already kind of on a roll, and so she wasn't super instrumental in the way that that story came together, but she helped, make it happen
Yes. Hmm.
still. But this story, The Littlest Fighter, is the first time that she and I were really building something from the ground up. And so we really got to work together, and I got to bounce ideas off of her, and she suggested stuff. And, to her credit, any suggestion she gave me was always kind of with the understanding that, like, at the end of the day, it's my book. And so she wanted to make it the way that I want to make it, but then she could also, uh,
Hmm.
describe, give me feedback, and she's really helped shape the book in really great ways. And then I have a couple other editors who worked on the book, Gabriel Granillo and
Hmm.
Azat Sayadi, who came in, I think, mostly while Grace was on maternity leave,
Hmm.
and helped out during those periods. The book is designed by Carrie Salcy. I think that's how you pronounce that.
Hmm.
And they were great. They were really awesome at, like, you know, matching my art style for the, like, title pages and coming up with textures and things like that that makes the book like feel like a whole package. And the logo is designed by a friend of mine, Darren Vogt,
Oh, okay.
who is just someone outside of Oni that I pulled in to work on the logo with me because I had seen he's just somebody who we've connected over the internet on similar interests, and he's a cartoonist himself. And I had seen him do graphic design and logo work for other folks. And when I was looking for a logo designer, he's the first person I thought of, and he was great to work with. We went back and forth. I was kind of giving him very vague descriptions of stuff and sending him, monster movie posters and things like that, where I was like, I like this, but I don't want it to be too much like that, and da 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 da. And together we made a logo that I really, really love.
Right? Because now, correct me if I'm wrong, because now I'm thinking. Now you could correct me because I'm trying to remember. Because the um the logo kind of sort of looks like those 1970s Godzilla monster posters, where it's kind of like it's like in almost like in a semicircle. It's kind of the wording's a little small on the top, but then the bottom part, the words are a little big. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I showed him some stuff like the original Godzilla posters where the logos are very blocky fonts that are
Hmm.
kind of rough looking. Maybe they have cracks in them and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what I think I showed him maybe the Ben-Hur logo that has the big, like,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
I know what you
And
mean.
but then I was like, but then maybe like the littlest can be kind of cute and funny looking.
Hmm.
And so it has a very soft kind of rounded look, and then fighter is the word that looks like a big, Godzilla logo or something like that.
Okay, that's so cool. Okay, will we see more adventures of Ash and Dot?
Maybe so. I haven't written a new book yet, but I definitely left the story open-ended in a way
Hmm.
where there could be more adventures.
Hmm.
Like I do feel like like the kind of problem I had presented with Ash and his character
Hmm.
and what he was working towards has been like quote
Yes.
unquote solved at the end of the book. But we see that they're going to continue to travel around together and there's gonna be, definitely opportunity for more stories with these characters.
So cool. All right. Um, I'm I'm just gonna actually I'm gonna jump to actually I'm gonna ask this question and if you already answered it, I'm sorry, I'm gonna repeat the question, but what was the most fun or cool thing that you loved working on this book?
Hmm. I mean, I think an exciting thing for me was like that coloring process, like I mentioned, that
Hmm.
incorporates dot tones and things like that. That was a style that I was experimenting in with single illustrations, but I'd never done a comic that way.
Hmm.
And that was very exciting to do. Um, but just drawing the book is very fun. I really pushed myself to make some very detailed environments with those kind of dense jungles and things like
Hmm.
that. And I've kind of really like narrowed down my graphic novel work to just being stuff I want to draw pretty much. And so
Hmm.
like, all I want to draw is like monsters and jungles and that's what this book basically is. Every once in a while, I'd have to draw like a town crowd scene or something and be like, this isn't gonna be fun, but I'd like make ways to make it fun.
Hmm.
Again, sort of sprinkling in creatures and things like that. So I just, I've been trying to over the years make my process more and more about like what do I want to do and what will be
Hmm.
fun to make. And the
Hmm.
idea is if it's fun to make, it'll be fun to read.
Yes. Okay. All right. Fun questions. Um, Favorite Godzilla movie?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, but Godzilla versus Monster Zero or Invasion of Astro Monster, that's my favorite. I feel like it's a like really good mix of kind of serious, scary Godzilla, and it's
Hmm.
just like starting to get to like cute hero
Yes.
Godzilla. It's in this transitionary period, and so I feel like it has a really good balance. It's got the kind of goofy sci-fi UFOs and
Hmm.
the aliens and everything, and a great cast, including an American actor, Nick Adams, who is
Yes.
actually pretty excellent in that. Kumi
Hmm.
Mizuno is amazing and great and everything. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that one.
All right. If someone at IDW, now IDW, if I remember correctly, has the Godzilla license, if they
Hmm.
call you tomorrow and ask you, would you like to do a Godzilla one shot? Do you have a story ready to go?
Ooh, I don't know. I have a few ideas. I would definitely want to do something where the kaiju are like characters and where they can talk to each
Mhm.
other and stuff and
Yes.
where they're personified. I think that would be really fun. I've always thought it would be fun to do something that like I don't want to give it away, but I think
Oh.
do comics about that kind of reflects on pet ownership with
Hmm.
King Caesar and the
Yeah.
priestess,
Mhm.
where he's a kind of dog and then she's kind of his owner. I think that would be kind of fun. But I haven't. It's not something I've like fully developed enough to take to IDW tomorrow and
Mhm.
throw in their laps. But I would love to talk to them about that for sure.
All right, Joe, I'm going to throw this. This is an off-the-cuff question because since we already talked about Kamen Rider V3. Um, Boom Studios, I know they have the license for the Power Rangers series. If
Mm-hmm.
Boom calls you on Friday, we got the Kamen Rider V3 license. We need to bring this to America. We heard you love Kamen Rider V3 and the Kamen Rider. Do you have a story ready to go?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I could work something out. I could whip something up for sure. I might be intimidated by trying to capture Kamen Rider's handsomeness on the page, but I would do my best.
All right. All right, Joey. Thank you for answering those fun questions. Three more questions. Um, any convention or bookstore appearance, sometime either we're looking at sometime April or later or after April.
Sure. I mean, April 5th, which might be past by the time that this comes out, I'll be
Mhm.
doing a signing in Savannah, Georgia. At the end of March, I'm doing like the book launch and everything here in
Yes.
Athens, Georgia, where I live. There's information about that on my website.
Hmm.
But if that has passed, the next big time that people can look out for me at events is in June. I'm going
Hmm.
to be at TCAF in Toronto, the Toronto Comics Art Festival, and at Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then maybe something else at the end of June where I'm kind of waiting to hear back about that. But yeah, so June is going to be a busy month for me, and you can definitely see me in Toronto and Charlotte that month.
That's gonna be nice. Thank you very much. All right. Have you and your family been to Hawaii?
I have not been to Hawaii. I'd love to go. I love the tropical thing and
Hmm.
talking about Kamen Rider and stuff. A thing that I've always envied about Hawaii is the Nippon Golden Network, NGN,
Hmm.
that I as a longtime, nerd about anime and Japanese movies and stuff,
Yes.
I've always known that there's this station in Hawaii that shows Japanese movies with English subtitles that aren't available elsewhere. For a while, I had kind of a hookup with somebody who could record those and send me videos of that stuff. And so I've always when I think of Hawaii, one of the first things I think of is NGN.
All right. Oh,
Actually.
that's so cool. That is so cool. Um, when you talk about anime stuff, on Oahu where I live, we have in yeah, on basically it's like one of the biggest animation conventions in the state called KawaiiCon.
Oh, cool.
KAWAIIKON. So yeah, so it's they have all the voice actors, or they get most of the voice actors, and I've never been to it, but it's like, I mean, for the state of Hawaii, I think they average maybe about 15,000 people that go every year. It's a
Wow.
3-day
Yeah.
event. Yeah. So, um, any closing words to our listeners?
Well, I hope that they check out The Littlest Fighter. It's out now, and
Mhm.
as you're listening to this, and so it's available. I, always encourage people to order from their local bookseller or their local comic shop, but if that's not available, get it online, and it's also available digitally if you prefer to read that way. And I'm really proud of this book, and I really want people to read it because I really think of that as the kind of like last step in the process of making the book is actually having readers. So, I really hope people check it out. Thanks.
Joey, mahalo. Thank you. Thank you in Hawaiian. Thank you for your time. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to interview, and thank you for making comics.
No, thank you.
This is
That's sweet of you to say.
oh, because you know, and I because the Littlest Fighter, it's I mean, we talked about earlier that, they had to put like an age range on this, to it's more for marketing, but basically it's an all ages book. I'm,
Hmm.
I'm 58 years old. I read it. I love it. It's great. I love the artwork,
That's
the
awesome.
characters. The characters are someone that I can relate to, and the dialogue, um, I love the dialogue. It's just natural. Um, it and it just clicked with me. So it's
Oh,
very
that's great.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
thank
wish
you.
you all the success with the with this, with your graphic novel. Um, I want to give a big mahalo to Hannah for help setting up this interview. Again, Hannah, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes and providing an advanced copy for me. Thank you very much. Now, if you are a lifelong comic book fan who is looking for a graphic novel for you to read to your children, please check out The Littlest Fighter from Oni Press. The book is out in stores right now. And also too, I, I'm going to repeat this again. I love this story. I love Ash and Dot. They're very relatable characters. It's very good. The art is amazing, especially I have to keep going back to the two-page spread. The one Dot and Ash are, it's at nighttime. They're in the forest. They're looking up. That is incredible. That's amazing. That is very good. The story is, I love the story. Um, it has heart. I love it. It's great. It really is. And there's a positive message to this too. Joey, I'm being serious on this. Listeners, if you have young nieces or nephews who love comics and love Godzilla movies, pick up a copy of The Littlest Fighter and give it to them as a gift or as a birthday present. So, yeah. I also want to thank Drew, the host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
Aloha.
Out in the ring, the battle begins. Tiny but mighty, I fight for the win. Swinging and dodging, I never back down. One little punch can shake the whole town. They say I'm too small, say I won't last. But watch me rise up, I'm lightning fast. Running through titans, taking them all. One by one, I make them fall. Ready, set, rumble, here we go. I may be little, but I steal the show. Fists of fury, heart of steel. The littlest fighter, yeah, I'm the real deal. Crashing through cities, breaking the ground. Every new challenge, I'm taking them down. But then comes Dot, she's calling my name, telling me, Ash, this ain't just a game. What if these battles are hurting too much? What if destruction's the real uppercut? Still there's one fight I need to see. The legendary champ is waiting for me. Ready, set, rumble, here we go. I may be little, but I steal the show. Fists of fury, heart of steel. The littlest fighter, yeah, I'm the real deal. Through the dust and the echoes of fights, I see the truth in the champion's light. Lane's loudy through your arms for changing my mind. Ready, set, rumble, one last time. Strength ain't just this, it's heart and mind. Fist of fury, heart of steel. The littlest fighter, now I'm the real deal. Yeah, the littlest fighter, standing tall, win or lose, I give it my all.